So I'd just like to introduce the farmlands team. We have Elton Mayo, agronomist for farmlands, who'll be presenting, followed by Rob Derrick, nutritionist for farmlands. So welcome to the stage, Elton.
Great, thanks Neil. Welcome all. And we'll just be in charge with having a brief conversation with you guys around some different forages for lactating sheep on. So these forages we're going to talk about here all generally have low NDF or have a high rumen bypass rate or degradation rate. So legumes, they're a key part of high performing systems, whether it be red, white or annual. Lucerne fits in there as well to a point. Andy talked there earlier, a minute ago, in regards to lucerne, the breakdown of that plant, consuming the top end at 12 ME, the bottom end being 8 ME. So with a lot of these high performing systems, wastage is a necessary evil of a high performing system, especially in situ grazing, not necessarily the same within TMR. Herbs, chicory and plantain. I've got tonic in bracket there, main reason being is all of the work that's been done to date has been done on tonic plantain. There's a whole range of other plantains in the market, but all of the work's been done on tonic at this point. And then we have brassicas. Thomas talked in regard to some of the issues they're having up there around supply of feed. And we farm in New Zealand's deemed to be a temperate environment. And if you look up temperate in the encyclopedia or in a dictionary, it's mild, moderate without extreme. There's probably not many places in New Zealand now that would be deemed to be temperate. If you are in a temperate environment, stick your hand up. Must be from the Southlands. So this is a bit of a breakdown here of these forages and the time it takes to 50% processed. So this is ryegrass in good leafy forms, taking about 6 hours to be 50% processed through the gut of an animal. You come down the bottom here and these other forages, about 2.5 to 3 hours to 50% processed. So the animal can process that feed about 2.5 times faster than, say, perennial ryegrass. And that's the backbone of our system. The function of these high-performing systems is generally of these products here. There's a large legume content, or the herb stands, or it may be lucerne. To get the absolute best out of something like lucerne, we need to be cutting or consuming that at probably no greater than 30 centimetres height. The higher the yield, the more lignification required to hold the balance of that feed up. So the more lignification, the higher the NDF, the slower the passage rate. So just briefly on some of these individual forages, red clover, high yield potential, somewhere between 12 and 18 tonnes per hectare on an annual basis. It's very forgiving a soil type. We'll talk about lucerne in a minute and perhaps some limitations around that. Fast to establish, somewhere between 2 and 4 years as far as a perennial stand goes. Minimal downtime over the cooler months compared to some of the other forages as well. And not, once again, a little bit like tonic plantain, not all of these things are the same. So red clover is not necessarily red clover around formatonin or phytoestrogen levels. So once again, be a little bit mindful about that. Annual clover is a whole range of these, and we've got an old red clover here and nomad, which is a small leaf dryland type species, just given the annual production. The interesting thing about these is the short-term types, or woodgenella. Subterranean clover is obviously an annual clover, but it resets seed and carries on an annual basis. These others here are generally only used as a 6-month crop. So this is over about 245 days in total, and we're growing, or 65% of the year, we can grow up to 19 tonnes of really high quality forage. So these things can have a fit as part of a farming system as well. So it can be very impressive. I've seen it probably up to hip height. Obviously then we start increasing NDF levels and quality starts dropping. But as with most of these forages, it's about cutting at a quality stage. Lucerne, more soil specific or type specific. Cool season and active. Lucernes come with a whole range of dormancy ratings. The more winter active it is, the less persistent it'll be. So it might be sitting back down here at the 4 to 5 year mark, whereas the high dormancy ratings, they'll push out anywhere between 8 and probably 12 years. Good solid yield potential, somewhere between 12 and 18 tonnes. Once again, solely dependent on soil type and fertility. Good management required, and if a large proportion of your diet is being fed, you'd need to be working with a nutritionist around some form of sodium supplementation. Most of us know what lucerne looks like. Chicory, Once again, another short-term crop, very, very rapid establishment. I've seen it established from establishment through the first grazing in as little as 25 days and as long as 90 days. So it's very, very sensitive to ambient and soil temperature at establishment. So generally best run as a 6-month crop. In the second season or after a winter, it's vernalised. It tends to want to go reproductive in that second season. You'll compromise total yield by somewhere between 3 and 4 tonnes on an annual basis. And most of this information comes out of the dairy sector. When you Google sheep milking, there's actually a really limited amount of information on forages and what returns are. So I'm making a lot of assumptions here based off live weight gain and what's coming out of the dairy industry. Within the dairy industry, we're consuming over 22, in some properties, over 22 tonnes of forage in 6 months with high nitrogen input on the right soil types. Chicory is probably one of the most consistent forms of live weight gain of all forages, chicory and red clover. Tonic plantain, some lactation work being conducted by Dairy NZ, and once again there'll be direct correlations here between this and what happens within the sheep systems. What they found is when the ME of ryegrass was moderate, at sitting about 10.5, there was no advantage to feeding plantain. But when the ME of ryegrass dropped, as the ryegrass went reproductive, produced stem and head, NDF went up. When they were supplementing the tonic plantain, cow intakes increased by 6% and milk solids yield by 19%. So as a sole forage, plantain is not necessarily really high quality. Where the advantage is coming from a live weight gain or from milk solids production perspective is in the fact the animal can process that feed so quickly. So it's actually a higher intake on a daily basis. Range of brassicas, and these things will go a long way to filling some of the gaps that Thomas has up there, whether it be summer feed or taking genuine surplus out of the spring and pushing into the summer, or even then on through into the winter when we have genuine deficits. So there's a range of forages here, rape and kale. Rape's a multi-graze option, kale's something that generally be pushed through as a winter feed. Hunter and pasture, which are leafy turnips, multiple graze options. Just another photo there of Hunter. One of the potential issues with brassicas is certainly within the dairy industry, any more than about a third of the diet fed as forage brassica, you do run the risk of photosensitivity and or milk taint, and I'm making assumptions there that would be the same within the sheep sector. It'd be interesting to see some work happen on that moving forward. Some work that's come out of Massey University, and New Zealand's based on ryegrass and white clover. Generally it's ryegrass, they tend to be a little lower in the white clover side of things. On all these lamb live weight gains, the average is about 154 grams a day. And we take in these other forages that all have rapid rumen degradation rates. We go from 150 to 250, so there's 100 grams a day there by putting something in with low NDF. There's obviously going to be this part of the diet needs to be functional fibre. That's where, once again, a nutritionist will come into it. I'm an agronomist, not a nutritionist. So. Anyway, that's me.